Well, to just discuss all of this a bit further, we have Joe Siracusa joining us from Perth in Australia. He is an author and the Dean of Global Futures at Curtin University. Thanks so much for being with us today, Joe. Now, it's been 2 days since that UN Security Council resolution, but it seems very much like nothing has changed on the ground. Why is that? Why has that not made any difference yet?
Good afternoon, Charlotte. Well, it's because the United States will not allow anything to change on the ground. I mean, the United States is between a rock and a hard place. The Israelis are going to do pretty much what they want. You know, a couple hours ago, President Biden called Prime Minister Netanyahu. It was a personal conversation. I don't think much went on. I mean, President Biden is 81 years old and has a popularity rating of 37, and Netanyahu is 74 and has a popularity rating of 4. I mean, it's not exactly a power conversation. Both of them have lost control. I mean, Netanyahu just wants to be able to tell the Israeli public, well, he's got the Americans on side. And of course, the Americans are on side because there is no other side. You know, as far as I'm concerned, we have a failure of the Biden administration. There's a diplomatic failure here. And my goodness, I mean, the Palestinians should feel like as though the international community has deserted them, because it has. I mean, I've been following these things all my life, and the idea that the situation has called for the cancellation of Christmas suggests to you how gloomy things are over there. And anyway, Biden has he's gone. I mean, he's as far as I'm concerned, he's toast. He will lose the next election if he actually stands for election. He's lost the swing states. He's lost the Arab American voters. They've given up on him. Most Americans blame him for the failure to bring this to a halt. And frankly, the Americans abstaining on this particular vote suggests to me that just plain stupidity. I mean, I know the Russians abstain. I mean, the Russians thought it didn't do enough. The Americans thought it did too much. This idea of playing games with words while people are dying in the hundreds and thousands, I mean, I find it slightly offensive that anybody think that this is a good day's work. And America has lost all of its friends. You know, it's no longer the honest broker in the Middle East. No one's going to believe them. And of course, we're looking at possible regional conflict of the war, not only in Yemen, but in Lebanon and in other places. So, you know, this thing could go bigger and bigger. But I'll tell you what, we've reached a low point in the world of international diplomacy, because the international community seems to be blind and deaf to what's going on there.
There's been some discussion, Joe, about whether the US is putting pressure on Israel, who simply isn't responding to that pressure and are just carrying on doing, as you said, what they like. Whereas other people see it more as the US not putting any pressure at all and sort of saying one thing but doing something else. Where do you touched on it there, but if I could just get a bit more from you on that.
Well, Charlotte, from what I can see, and this war's been going on for 11 weeks, the Biden administration gave Netanyahu the green light to commence the hostilities in the wake of the October 7th attack on those kibbutzes. So you know, he's given them the green light from day one. He's not trying to restrain anybody. He's probably trying to restrain his own people, that is the State Department and Defense Department. They can see that this is going nowhere, as a matter of fact. And of course, you know, Biden, he's got the disaster at Kabul. He put all of his money on the Ukrainians, and that's failed too. This is a part of the trifecta that failed. He's put all his money here on Israel, despite the fact what the American foreign policy community has to think. I mean, there's a lot of Americans, good Americans in the State Department, Defense Department, who know that this has gone in the wrong direction, that he hasn't put on the brakes. Can he put on the brakes? I don't know. I mean, in the last 6 months, or just before the conflict, Netanyahu approved 13,000 settlements that is taking land from people in the occupied territory. I mean, that should have been the green light that this thing's out of control. I mean, Netanyahu's promised Israelis in his own cabinet there'll never be a Palestinian state. Yes, and President Biden has taken a little different view here. He says there'll be he doesn't think that the Israelis should reoccupy Gaza by any stretch of the imagination, and that the Palestinian Authority ought to go into Gaza, which of course is not going to happen anyway. And of course, I think the really interesting thing here, you got President Biden, you got Prime Minister Netanyahu, and you got the leader of the Palestinians, Abbas, and they're all going to be gone next year. There's going to be a whole new team. And so I get this impression that everybody's waiting for what someone like President Trump is going to do, or the next guy is going to do. So we're all kind of like waiting for Godot as people are dying. And I'll tell you what bothers me is this looks like a shooting gallery, a match between a shooting gallery and Hunger Games. This idea of people starving in their own land, dispossessed. And this just isn't right, and it's going to have a morally corrosive, I think, impact on Israeli society. But at the end of the day, we got a scorpion and a tarantula in a bottle, and they live right next door to each other, and nobody seems how to control this. And that
Absolutely.
may be
And Joe, I just had one other question. The UN Special Rapporteur said that what's happening is a result of, and I quote, institutional impunity. What do you think he means by that, and do you think he's right?
Well, yeah, I mean, the United Nations can't do anything because it's structurally excluded from doing so because of the Security Council with the 5 vetoes. So the 5 major powers there can stop anything from happening. That's one of the things. The other thing, too, is there hasn't been a new idea coming out of Washington in 56 years. I've lived through this whole period of time, and all Americans have ever done is talk about a 2-state solution and haven't done anything towards resolving it. So you have this institutional hardwiring incapable of doing anything about it. I mean, that's what this reference refers to, the institutional incapability. And so, the Palestinians are going to pay this high price. On the other hand, the Israelis going to do what they want to do because they're going to say the other guy started it. Fair enough. At what point do you stop? I don't know, but you just can't have 200-300 casualties a day for 11 weeks. Thousands of people buried under rubble. I mean, this is just, it's unconscionable, and it's unwatchable, Charlotte. It's just unwatchable.
Absolutely. Joe Siracusa from Curtin University, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.